Hey guys, this is what happens when you don't store your bulbs properly. Look at that. This is a daffodil variety called Tommy's White. And unfortunately, when they arrived, and it was no fault of the growers, they arrived in beautiful condition. It was all about how I stored them. I threw them in the garage. They came about, I'd say about a month ago. Threw them in the garage. It got very warm there. We've had a very warm fall, so it got very hot in there. And it was dark, which is a great situation, but the heat is a killer for these guys. I should have brought them in, put them in a very cool closet that we have in the house and stored them there. It's always worked in the past, and because life got in the way this fall, I completely forgot about all these bulbs that I had. And as I'm going through them, so many of them have been damaged. And there are a few that have remained really nice, and I'll show you those in a moment. But there's one variety, actually it's not a daffodil or a tulip, but it's, and I'm kind of sick about it, but it's a dwarf iris that I'd been looking for a while. It's one called, it's Iris hysteroides, something like that, but it's called Catherine's Gold. And I ordered them from Brent and Becky's Bulbs, and they came in beautiful condition. So Iris it can come in rhizome or bulb form. This dwarf variety is a bulb form, and I first saw them a couple years back at a restaurant planted in Mass, and they only get maybe 4 or 5 inches tall, and the flower on it is the sweetest yellow flower. But what I really liked is even after they flower, they have this really nice sword-like appearance it's just a different texture altogether at the front of a border. So that was what I was trying to get at. And of all of the bulbs that I ordered, I'm not gonna have that mass planting this year. I have 7 healthy dwarf iris bulbs. So they're gonna go in and hopefully they multiply. Hopefully they'll be like the rabbits around here and multiply and make lots of babies. And that's the other thing, naturalizing. When bulbs naturalize, and I love to pick varieties that are really good at doing that because I love for them to fill in spaces. And I did that with my Ice Follies daffodils years ago on the west side of the garden. And this year, well, you know what, before I get into all that, let me show you all the different varieties that I have and explain a little bit about them. Now, at the base of my Tamukiyama Japanese maple, look at the color on this too. It's still all of my, not that I have a lot, but my Japanese maples look so beautiful right now. But I thought in this area, right underneath it, once this drops its leaves, this will be exposed to the sun in the morning, and so this will be completely bathed in sun for the winter and the springtime, which is a perfect situation for snowdrops or galanthus. And then I've got some Chionodoxa as well. So the one that I have is Blue Giant, so it's also called Glory of the Snow. And then the snowdrops, which one is this? Let's see, Acaria. But the beautiful thing about that is they bloom in late winter, early spring, and they're both low growing. So the galanthus or snowdrop will be this beautiful little white downward facing flower, and the Chionodoxis blue beneath the bone structure of the Tamukiyama Japanese maple. And I just think it's going to be a beautiful grouping of early spring or late winter, early spring flowers. And then in this little space here, I'm going to drop in those 7 little dwarf irises and wish them well, and hopefully they multiply. Now this space here is the camouflage for some garbage cans that are just on the other side of the emerald green arborvitae. But this whole space is open with the exception of a Scarlet O'Hara peony, which is a late bloomer, and then an oak leaf hydrangea, and then a Elizabeth magnolia. So I decided I wanted to do some species tulips. I did an experiment several years ago with species tulips just to see how appetizing they would be to rabbits. I've heard many people say how species tulips do really well. For whatever reason, deer and rabbits do not want to eat them. But the fact of the matter is, and I think we all know that there's no deterring a hungry deer or rabbit. They will try anything. But I experimented with a species tulip called Lilac Wonder, and no rabbits touched it. It was beautiful. So I decided this year I'm going to do some more species tulips. So I chose a species tulip variety called Praysten's Shogun from Color Blends, and it's only about a foot tall, orange flower. And I paired that with some Muscari, which I can't remember which variety I got, the Muscari latifolium. And both of them are early to mid-season bloomings. When I'm picking bulbs for an area, I'm paying attention to what time they bloom, because bulbs have different, they can be early to mid to late. So I want to make sure that I'm picking bulbs that bloom at the same time. And these 2 varieties do. So purple and orange go bears. Now you might remember this space where I did the Greenwall Spire crabapple a few weeks ago for a previous video. And right in front of it, I've got the Diamond Rouge panicle hydrangea. So this area all in front of it here and just behind the juniper is going to be a variety of daffodil called Pheasant's Eye or Poeticus. It's a very old variety and I really love it. It's a white flower with this kind of red frilly trimmed cup. Really, really pretty. And I've paired that with some more muscari. Now this is a variety, these are samples that were sent to me from Proven Winners. Same bloom time, and it's a variety called Fantasy Creation. So I'm gonna just kind of mix them all together, toss them in here and plant them wherever they land. And then on the opposite side of the Greenwall Spire crabapple are going to be two varieties. I just introduced you to the muscari, the Fantasy Creation muscari, but they also sent me a parrot tulip called Rococo. It's a double Rococo tulip. I typically don't do tulips aside from those species tulips because they really, rabbits and deer just annihilate them, but I'll have to put them on a spray schedule to deter them. But this is a gorgeous tulip, and I don't typically like red in the garden, but I really think it's gonna be beautiful. And these are late season bloomers, so I think, was it mid to late or late? Late spring, which should be perfect because I'll have the red of the flower of the tulips, the purple muscari, and then the white flower. These are a late spring blooming crabapple, so very patriotic. Red, white, and blue, and hopefully, if my vision comes to fruition, all of this will be red, white, and blue through here. So I'm gonna mix these guys together, scatter them about, and use my power planter to put them in. I like to add a little bulb tone to the planting bed. And then scratch it all in. I like to combine my tulip bulb combination, kind of mix them together in a box, and then toss them out. What I want to avoid is planting in straight rows. It doesn't look natural. It doesn't happen in nature that way. So I'm gonna give them a shake and then just start sprinkling them. Looks good to me. And then if they're just too close, you can space them out a little bit. The recommendation is for the species tulips 3 inches apart and then 2 inches apart for the muscari. I'm just gonna kind of go with around 3 inches. I'm not being too particular about it, and I'm certainly not being precious with it. And I'm just gonna use my power planter to get them into the ground. And the rule of thumb for planting depth is you wanna plant them twice, 2 to 3 times their depth, their circumference. So if they're like a 2-inch bulb, you want to put them at least 4 inches deep. If they're a 1-inch bulb like the muscari, 2 inches deep. So I'm going to fire up my power planter, and if you've never seen one of these make planting so much easier. I have a video that I will link in the caption below to take you straight to that to show you how to get one of these fired up. You might be wondering how late is too late to plant your spring blooming bulbs. And fortunately, bulbs are very resilient. Everything they need to grow is encapsulated in that little bulb. So, but ideally you want to get them in the ground about 6 to 8 weeks before the ground freezes. I've planted as late as like around Christmas time when I've forgotten certain bulbs and they've still come up. That's not ideal. That doesn't mean you should go ahead and do that. I'm about 6 weeks out from our ground freezing. It's the middle of November. So usually freezes by, I'd say, the end of December. So I'm right within that window, but that doesn't mean if you miss that window, your bulbs are not going to make it. So you just want to get them in sooner than later. So I'm a zone 5B, 6A, so usually like November, late October, early November is ideal, but these should be just fine. Next up is my Gloria of the Snow, or Chionodoxa, and the Galanthus, or Snowdrops. They are my earliest blooming bulbs, and they're planted 3 inches deep and about 3 inches apart. So I'm just going to mix them up like I did with the tulips and the muscari a moment ago. And before I move on, look at the color combination between the Japanese maple, this is the Tsumukiyama, and then my Chantilly lace goat's beard, or Aruncus. I did a video on the Aruncus earlier in the year. If you garden in dry shade, which is extremely challenging, definitely consider goat's beard. It is so tough. It's got multi-season interest, as you can see, the yellow fall color on it. Interesting seed heads, very pollinator friendly, and just an all-around tough plant. And so it's outgrown this space, and I meant to move it this spring, or fall actually, and it's gonna have to wait till next spring. So, but for right now, I am gonna combine my 2 different types of bulbs here. 3 inches deep, 3 inches apart, and space them all under here and on the other side. And planting bulbs beneath deciduous trees is an ideal situation because, especially with these guys, these are very early to flower, so there's no leaves on this. So this is going to get a full sun eastern exposure, and it's a perfect situation for spring blooming bulbs. So I'm going to combine these and start spacing them out. And both the Chionodoxa and the Galanthus grow to a similar height, so about 6 inches. So perfect combination, early spring, late winter, early spring, and same height. So look really pretty together. I was hoping I'd be able to finish today, but I have to pick up my daughter from school, and we've got rain rolling in. So I am going to finish up these muscari that I have in the front of the border here. And then I used a rope back here as my reference because I put my pheasant eye daffodils back here, and this beyond that rope is where I'm going to put the rococo, the double rococo tulips, and more muscari. So that whole back area. So if you can visualize that, I think it's gonna be gorgeous. But if I get the rest of them in within the next week or two, I should be just fine. So I'm gonna focus on finishing this and calling it a day. I don't know about you, but bulb planting is one of those things that I kind of dread every year, but next spring I'll be glad I did it because this should be beautiful. So anyway, it's worth doing even though it's not the funnest thing. Well guys, that's all I have time for today, but I'm just imagining this being all orange tulips with the hyacinths, or the grape hyacinths. Is that what I did in there? Yes, that's what I did in there. And then rounding the bend as we come this way, this whole area around this bend here is going to be the muscari, and then there'll be daffodils, and then just beyond the crab apples here will be those double red rococo tulips and more muscari. So thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.